Good evening from Jerusalem. This is Amir. I hope I'm live. I think I'm live, but you probably won't believe it. But I did a whole Facebook Live for the last almost 45 minutes, basically not being live. So I spoke to myself for 45 minutes, but I'm glad to be back on Facebook Live right now, and hopefully people can hear what I have to say right now. So I probably, the enemy is trying to sabotage this because it could be that this is an important one. Again, shalom from Jerusalem, everybody. I'm excited to be able to share with you an extremely important piece of information regarding events that happened in the less than 24 hours ago between Israel and Syria. I apologize that I didn't come up live 47 minutes ago because I thought I was live and I spoke for 45 minutes apparently to myself. So anyway, I'm excited to be back. I can't wait to share with you. But before I go to explain what happened, I'd like to tell you that a lot of people are asking me, Amir, what do you think about the sign of Revelation 12, which the women, the sign in the stars, the sign in the skies, the women, and the moon, and the 12 stars, and everybody's waiting for September 23rd, I think, and they think that this is it, something big is going to happen. And I'm going to be interviewed to a special movie that is going to be made for a huge TV network about prophecy. And I think I'm the one whom they take to sort of like counterbalance this whole thing. Well, let me tell you one thing. One of the reasons why I love to report things that are happening around is because I love to stick to that which Jesus said that are indeed the signs of the end of the age. I always say that when the disciples came to Jesus and asked him, what are the signs of the end of the age? He could have told them, wait until you see that sign, and wait until you see 4 blood moons, and wait until you see things in the sky. But he never mentioned that. If anything, he gave them a detailed list of things to look for in order to understand that we indeed live in the end. And these are indeed the times and the seasons. And everything Jesus said, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and this is exactly what I'm watching for in order to determine whether we live in the end times or not. And this is why I'm excited when I'm reporting the things that are happening around, because I get to see 100% fulfillment of the words of Jesus in the things that are happening all around us. It's important that you understand that one of the reasons I stay away from all those signs is because oftentimes people take those verses out of context. When the Bible in Revelation 12 speaks of that sign, people often don't understand. It says that a great sign appeared in heavens. First of all, it says appeared, not will appear. And it says appeared in heaven, and a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was with child, and she cried out, being in labor and in pain to give birth. That means that this is a description of Israel about to give birth to the Messiah. And that is, of course, 2,000 years ago. And then goes the description of how when Christ was born, Satan was immediately after him. Satan was immediately against him. Satan was immediately persecuting him and Israel at the time. So we have to remember that sign of Revelation 12 verse 1 is a sign of the past, not of the future. The future is from verse 13 and on. I'm not trying to you know, to to put down anyone. I'm just trying to cause people to read the Bible. More so, I want people to understand the times and the seasons. So Jesus, when he was asked, he was, telling people about famines and pestilences and earthquakes and wars and rumors of wars. You know, the UN just reported of a catastrophe of famine in Somalia, in Yemen, in Sudan, in Nigeria. We're talking about catastrophe. And so this is something I think is worth reporting. Did you know that? Did you know that the UN said that by the end of March they need $4 billion and they only raised less than 10% of it? Did you know that this is it? Did you know that earthquake-wise, we're experiencing the most severe of all time periods since the history of measuring earthquakes? Did you know that we have more wars and rumors of wars today than ever before? And that, of course, leads me to the incident. Of course, you know how much I watch all around, and I can see the Isaiah 17 and Ezekiel 38 and 39 being or approaching all of us. And this is exactly why I wanted to report on the things that happened in the last 24 hours. So watch this, guys. It started like that. First of all, over the last 3 years, reports are saying that Israel had attacked in the depth of Syria more than 12 times. And in none of those incidents, Israel ever admitted that it did something, and the Syrians ever admitted that something had happened. You know, if Israel comes out and said we attacked, of course the Syrians will immediately have to say, well, yes, they did, and we are going to attack back and retaliate. But the minute you say nothing, then you don't embarrass the other side, and they say nothing, and as far as you're concerned, mission is accomplished and nothing happened. But what happened last night was very different. It was the time was 2:43 a.m., middle of the night. It's funny because I'm not sleeping well over the last few years. I sleep 2 hours, 3 hours a night. And actually last night I slept pretty well. And I didn't hear anything. I'm here in Jerusalem with a group from Grace Chapel in Tennessee. And after many nights of lack of sleep, I managed to take 2 sleeping pills and I slept pretty good. But when I woke up around 4 a.m., immediately my phone was exploding from alerts and messages from different sources that I have. And of course, 2:43 a.m., the air raid sirens in the Jordan Valley went off. Ladies and gentlemen, Israel is completely covered with a whole network of air raid sirens and radars that detect something that might come and immediately set them off. And Israel, of course, has Lebanon with Hezbollah, Syria with what's going on there. From the Jordanian side, the only thing we are afraid of is not Jordan, but it's Iraq beyond Jordan. And of course, on the southern part, we have Sinai, where Al-Qaeda is, and ISIS, and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. So apart from the Mediterranean, all around Israel, there's a potential for a rocket attack, and therefore the entire country is well connected to the air raid siren system. But who would imagine that along the Jordan Valley, when you travel from the Sea of Galilee all the way to the Dead Sea, that's the Jordan Valley, who would imagine that in that area, air raid sirens will go off? Of course, when thousands of civilians wake up in the middle of the night, you can't really hide anymore or cover anymore an operation. And apparently Israel came out and admitted that 4 F-15s took off from an Israeli military airbase in the area of Tel Aviv, and they were on their mission to attack a weapon convoy on its way to the Lebanese border in northern Syria, to the hands of the Hezbollah. And we're talking about missiles, Scud missiles that have the range of 700 kilometers. That's more than 450 miles range. Israel is not going to allow such a thing, because that means that even from northern Lebanon, if they shoot those rockets, it'll hit Israel. And so Israel decided not to wait. From day one, our goal is to stay out of what's going on in Syria as far as not taking sides there. But whenever something goes there that might jeopardize us as a country, we're going to do something. And again, last 3 years, 12 times, folks, we did that. We said nothing. But another thing that was quite extraordinary, apart from the fact that Israel admitted that, the reason why there were air raid sirens is because the Syrians, for the first time, once the Israeli jets turned around and flew back to Israeli airspace, the Syrians launched several anti-aircraft rockets. And I'm talking about the SA-5. It's an old Russian made, known in Russia as the S-200. And some of them missed the targets, and one of them apparently flew all the way and was about to hit Israel. The Israeli radar system detected it and immediately launched, for the first time ever, the Arrow missile. And the missile hit the SA-5 and destroyed it in the air, and the debris fell both in the Jordanian and the Israeli side. So now, not only that the Israelis know about what happened, I'm talking about civilians, now even the Jordanians know what happened, because some of the debris fell right in the heart of a nearby village near Irbid, and the Jordanian media reported that. So it's very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Jordan reported that something happened. The Israeli civilians know that something happened. Israel came out and said, yes, something happened. And the Syrians, just a few hours ago, said, yes, something happened. The Syrians, they live in fantasy land. They said that the rockets shot down an Israeli plane and it fell in Israeli territory and damaged 2 others. No such thing ever happened. All 4 aircrafts landed safely back in Israel. But, ladies and gentlemen, about 10 minutes ago, the Israeli ambassador to Russia was summoned to the foreign ministry in Moscow and is about to be asked to give explanation for the Israeli attack. Can you imagine? Listen to what I'm saying. Israel attacked a convoy of weapons that were supposed to be used against us, and the Israeli ambassador in Moscow is summoned to the foreign ministry there to give explanations. If that's not Russia calling the shots in the Middle East, then I don't know what it is. Folks, you have to understand that Russia is not only calling the shots in the Middle East, in Syria, but Russia probably didn't like the fact that Israel attacked and allowed the Syrians to launch those rockets. I cannot even start to explain what I feel right now. You know, we've been talking about a future Russian invasion into Israel. You don't invade into a country out of the blue. Tension has to be built up first. Things have to be with some background, with some history. And what we see right now is the history being made in preparation for eventually the loss of tolerance on the Russian side. Make no mistake, the Russians are calculating their steps only according to what's good for them when it comes to oil and gas. This is why, by the way, not only that is what's going on in Syria, but over the last few days, reports came, and I think I reported that on the app. If you don't have my app, Behold Israel, get it. Guys, let me tell you, Facebook is not going to have me forever here. there's no doubt in my mind that I'm going to be banned from Facebook and maybe even YouTube one day. So the app and the email that you can subscribe to get are probably going to be the only way for me to communicate with you. Let me explain, guys. I reported a few days ago that Russian soldiers were seen on the Syrian-Libyan border. Libya is mentioned in Ezekiel 38. Libya is mentioned as Put. The Bible speaks of course, Russia, Turkey, and Iran on this side. But in the African side, there is Sudan and Libya. Funny, these are the only two countries in Africa that are banned from traveling to America, according to the plan of President Trump to ban immigrants from anywhere around that area. Libya and Sudan are the two countries that don't recognize even the existence of Israel in Africa, and they will do whatever it takes to destroy Israel. And let me explain. 2 days ago, gangs took over a stretch of 200 kilometers in Libya with all the oil installations right there. And that may explain to you why the Russians started moving or flexing their muscles and moving stuff. And the Russian foreign minister months ago said that they are interested in putting there a government that will be stable enough. The word stable enough means allow us to have control over that oil. And that is exactly why I believe the Russians are now even on that front. The Egyptians are saying, we don't have any Russians. The Russians are saying, we're not there. But the reports on the ground are that Russian soldiers are on the Egyptian-Libyan border. It's clear. You cannot really deny those things today. It's all on, people can take pictures and videos and post it, and it's very easy now in this era of social media. So, ladies and gentlemen, Libya is now getting Russian involvement. Libya has chaos. ISIS is, of course, stirring the pot there, and there's a town there called Sirat where they reported that ISIS was gone. ISIS is back there, and what probably the Europeans are afraid the most is that Libya will continue exporting refugees from its territory, from Africa, across the Mediterranean to Italy, and from there into Western Europe. Ladies and gentlemen, the Italian mafia, together with the rebels in Libya, they're making millions of dollars from all of that. And the human rights organizations that are sponsored by George Soros, they're paying for every head that is being rescued from the waters of the Mediterranean. So this whole thing is with a lot of money, and everybody wants a piece of it. So you see Russian involvement for the sake of getting control of the oil, and you see how the money that is being made with the industry, may I say, of sending refugees to Europe. Europe is flooded with immigrants, and that causes Western European governments to shake. It causes, by the way, the Europeans themselves to start moving. There's a shift of Europeans to start supporting the right-wing, anti-immigration political parties inside Europe. Of course, these parties aren't strong enough to become the governments, but they are strong enough to call the shots in any potential government, just like in the Netherlands, and just like in France, and just like in many other places, even in Germany. Ladies and gentlemen, more things happened over the last 24 hours. One thing is President Erdogan, today, a few hours ago, was in a rally, elections rally in Ankara. And he called upon all the Turks that lives in Europe to bring babies to the world. He even said, bring more than 5 children, So they will take over Europe. He said you should bring to the world at least 5 children. He understands that the weapon to win Europe is demography, is the demographic weapon. We can take over when our number will be, of course, increasing rapidly. And he has two weapons, basically. The wombs of the Turkish women that live in Western Europe, and all the refugees that he can open the gates of Turkey and flood into Western Europe. That causes a lot of discomfort to the Europeans. And when Turkey will be humbled, and may I say even humiliated on the mountains of Israel during Ezekiel 38, that of course will cause the Europeans to say enough is enough. No more Islam, no more religion even at all. Right now the Europeans are trying to fight the spread of Islam, but it cannot. Why? Because it's unconstitutional, it's not democratic to just fight one religion, a specific one. And so what Europe is basically doing is, if we can't fight one religion, let's fight all religions. Let's strip off all religious identity from Europe. Let's not allow the Jews to wear yarmulkes. Let's not allow the Muslim to wear burqas. And let's not allow Christians to express their faith publicly as well. By doing so, maybe we can fight the spread of Islam. But at the same time, what you're going to get eventually down the road is exactly what the Pope has been trying to push for the last few years. The religion of good deeds. You really don't need to belong to a specific religion. All you need is to be a good person, to do good deeds, and that's what matters. And the Europeans will take that in both hands and hold it close to them, because if that's the only way for us to be able to fight the spread of Islam, then we'll take it. So on one hand, Erdogan is threatening Europe that he's going to flood Europe with Muslims. On the other hand, the Europeans are desperately going to try to do whatever it takes to fight that one. Damascus, you know, and I've been saying that for a long time, Damascus has to be destroyed. 2/3 of the city is already destroyed. But what you may not know is that Damascus is going through a terrible Shiite-Sunni thing. 17 million Sunnis are not going to allow 2 to 3 million Shiites to butcher them, kill them, and destroy them. So what they do, they send suicide bombers. 2 days ago, a series of explosions killed scores of Shiites. 2 days earlier, one big explosion caused more than 100 Shiite casualties in Damascus. All that to say that yes, Israel one day may attack Damascus and utterly destroy it, but the Syrians themselves are far more talented and capable of doing that. And they are already doing that. You have to understand that. So we talked about Syria, and we talked about Libya, and we talked about the Russians. You may not know, but the Russians just yesterday bombed a mosque in the city of Aleppo, in the western part of Aleppo. And they bombed the mosque, and the mosque collapsed. At least 35 bodies were recovered. Dozens more still buried under the rubble. Remind me if the Human Rights Council of the UN condemned the Russians. Remind me if the UN Security Council condemned the Russians. Remind me if any liberals around the world condemned the Russians. I don't think so. It's interesting. If Israel would have done that, you and I know that 50,000 condemnations would have been flooding right now the Security Council, the Human Rights Council, or the international boycott, but it is Russia. And Russia is calling the shots. It is the bear. It is the giant. And nobody wants to mess up with them right now. And so I want to make things clear. A war nearly broke out last night between Israel and Syria. Things are stepping up in the Middle East. Syrians are feeling much more confident with the backing of the Russians. Russia is trying to get or ask for explanations from the Israelis. Israel once again needs to ask permission from the world to defend itself. We're almost back to square one. It's just that it's not America anymore. It is Russia that is calling the shots in the Middle East. And Israel is no longer a small country that nobody cares about. Israel is an energy superpower, and that is exactly why Russia is interested in it. And everything that Ezekiel is describing, whether it's the reason for the Russians to come in, whether it's the countries that are going to join Russia in its assault on Israel, everything is getting ready. And all that is left for us is to look up, because our redemption is drawing near. When I see all these things, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid, I'm excited. Because I told you, Bible prophecy is not to scare, it's to prepare. But Bible prophecy means the Word of God, which is a third of the Word of God, is prophecy. Which means you need to be in the Word, to know the Word, to be ready, so you will be out of here. Unfortunately, people choose. Bible prophecy becomes a trend in the last couple of years. I'm ashamed to say that sometimes I feel very, very discouraged that I'm even part of a club that is called Bible prophecy teachers, because the level of teaching that I see online, the sensationalism, how people take things out of context, how people confuse others, and how it's all about money, fame, selling books, big bombastic headlines. I'm ashamed. I'm embarrassed. And sometimes I feel like giving up and saying, you know what, I just don't want to be part of all of this. But then I turn on the computer and I see emails that really encourages me to move on. And what I want to encourage you guys is to stick to the Bible. You know, God exalts His word above His name. And the enemy will always try to confuse the children of God. Unfortunately, most of the false teachings, according to the Word of God, will come from within the church, from within the people of God. Let me encourage you guys to be in the Word. Let me encourage you guys, once you're in the Word, let the Word and let the Holy Spirit wash yourself from within. Prepare yourself. And once you are ready, you can be about the Father's business and get other people ready. It's pretty hard to preach to people the things that you yourself cannot even walk and do and genuinely believe in and hold on to. I believe that time is near. I'm not waiting for September 23rd signs in the heaven. I can see things happening even without that. I can see that the Russians are already in Syria and nobody says a word. In Turkey is in Syria, nobody says a word. In Iran is in Syria, nobody says a word. Russia stirs the pot already in Libya and in Sudan and nobody says a word. And the world goes as if nothing happens. Nobody condemns, nobody asks questions. People take it for granted. The stage is ready. The tension is being built up. The history is being written right now for the reasons of the Russians eventually to come against us. And I want to encourage you guys, all of this is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Now let's move to the good news. We just released today the Israel Unveiled Volume 2. If you remember, the Israel Unveiled Volume 1 included 4 DVDs of 11 different sites where I'm teaching. Now we are releasing 4 more new DVDs where I teach longer Bible studies in 4 different sites. One is in Joppa, one is in the Elah Valley, one is in the Red Sea, and one is in the desert where the tabernacle was. And we're going to, I'm so excited, you can get it online. You can order it on our resources store. You can get it on the app, or you can get it on beholdisrael.org. I'm excited to announce that, and it'll bless your heart. You know that the volume 1 I'm releasing to the YouTube channel every other week, 1 more chapter, so eventually you'll be able to watch it, of course, free of charge. I also want to tell you that we are going to release in the next week the dates for our 2018 tours. You know, we may not be here, but if we're still here, I want to invite you to see Israel, to see the borders of Israel, to talk about everything and Bible prophecy on a tour that is led by me with the Bible open every day, Bible studies on location. Space is limited to 1 bus per tour, apart from the tour with JD in November. And if you want to sign up, first come, first serve, just write us to info@beholdisrael.org. People ask me about the raffle. How can we win a free tour to Israel? On this video that you're watching right now, my content manager is going to post one of the comments all the instructions of how to participate and maybe increase your chances to win a free tour to Israel with me next year in Israel. The first prize will be that. The raffle will take place April 11th. I'll be in California, and we will announce the winners. Second prize is we'll fly you to the Understanding the Times conference of Jan Markell and Olive Tree Ministries in Minnesota, so you can see me and JD and Pastor Mark Hitchcock and Michelle Bachman live in Minnesota, in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. And I'll try to even have lunch with you guys there, and we can talk about Bible prophecy face to face. And the third prize, if you did not win one of the first 2, is I'll send you a whole box full of all of my DVDs, resources, a Bible, Hebrew English Bible. And if my book will come out by then, my book, signed copy of my book, will be there. Last but not least, if you want to be a coordinator of Behold Israel in your country, which means if you want to promote our ministry, our teachings in your community, in your own country, let us know. I would like to see people doing that, and eventually those coordinators will facilitate my visit to those countries, because they will prepare the communities and the churches around. And eventually what I will do is every time I will invite to Israel some of those coordinators so they can see Israel, behold Israel, and understand what it's all about. So if you want to be a Behold Israel coordinator in your country, write us to info@beholdisrael.org. We will gladly consider that. So here I am. It's pretty late. It's almost 10 p.m. This is the second time I'm doing that, remember? I'm glad I managed to cover all of these things. I think we live in historical times, unprecedented times. Keep your eyes up. Look for your redemption, because it's drawing near. Stay close to the Lord. Stay close to the Word. Be in the Word. And be about your Father's business. God wants to find us all about His business in these last days. So from Jerusalem, I want to say that I love you very much. I read many of your comments. My personal assistant is actually reading all of them. We're trying to answer whatever question you have. Sometimes you don't write questions, you just write your own opinion, which is okay. I know that there is no way I can be loved by or agreed by everyone, but I stick to the Word of God, and I try to cause and encourage people to do the same. Thank you again. God bless you, and shalom from the city of the great King, from Jerusalem. I love you, and God bless you. Shalom, everybody, and Shabbat Shalom. It is Friday night. Shabbat Shalom. God bless you.